So people are always talking about work-life balance. It's one of the big buzzwords, I think, in the productivity space over the last several years. And first of all, I think it's a false sort of concept, and I'll explain why. But it's more important now than I think it ever was. So first of all, work-life balance to me is not something that actually is attainable or should be desirable. And sorry, signal issue. It's more about a work-life integration. So work-life balance. So first of all, there's a great contemporary philosopher named Alain de Botton who says anything worth pursuing will take us out of balance. And it's true. So the idea of what work-life balance is that we are balancing the work in our lives with the life in our lives and whatever that might look like. That doesn't mean that they're going to be equally distributed, but it does mean that there are sort of two different sides of it. If you want to learn how to automate your sales business, you should join our Facebook group, The Replaceable Founder, and ask some questions in there because we've got some great resources. Rukshan, thank you. So work-life balance, you're trying to balance those two things, but a balance, if you think about like a physical balance, there's two different sides of it, right? And you can never truly be in balance. And if you think about it, if you're just standing, like I'm standing on one foot, for example, you're constantly out of balance. You're never in this state of balance. And if you are, it's completely momentary. And it's not that desirable anyway, because it's actually a very sort of stressful situation to be in when you're trying to balance these things. So an example of work-life balance would be the person that says that they leave the office at 5 o'clock and shut off all their, their work devices, and they don't think about work or do anything work-related, so that they can, go to the kids' basketball game or something like that. Or the person who, during their lunch break, they completely disconnect and go for a walk or something like that. Now, in theory, that sounds great to be able to sort of disconnect that way and choose one over the other. The problem is that in practicality, our minds just don't work that way. Human beings are not that capable. I mean, some are very capable of compartmentalizing, but to that extent, it's pretty hard. If you're working on something really interesting and exciting, for example, at your work, and then you want to go take a break for lunch and disconnect, where do you think your brain's going to be? Right? Anybody who's ever said that they were not great at meditating or had a challenge with meditating, which is most entrepreneurs, I think, and a lot of people that I know, would say that, their mind is constantly wandering in other places. They're looking at other things. So this idea that we could have a work-life balance is honestly just going to lead to more stress and anxiety. What you need is a work-life integration. And again, that is more important now than it ever was before. And with the work-life integration, what you're really talking about is being able to get things done in your work while still living your life. That's what it really means. So for me, for example, everybody's stuck at home right now. Some people are stuck at home with kids and they're dealing with homeschooling. In my house, pretty much until 1 in the afternoon, we are completely focused on homeschooling with our 4 kids and dealing with their various Zoom calls and different things like that. So the idea that once that's over, we're going to just disconnect and, get back to work or something, it just doesn't work. It does not work in practicality. But if you can do things in a very small amount of time, and one of the best ways to do that is if you communicate with your team or your clients or prospects asynchronously, then you can get a lot more done with smaller amounts of time. And while it may sound like what I'm talking about is rapidly switching back and forth between different tasks, which would be known as context switching, this is not the same thing. Context switching is more about what most people think of as multitasking, where you're trying to do 2 things at the same time. This is not the same. This is where you're able to think of yourself almost like the first domino in a series of 100 dominoes in your work. If you can send a 30-second message or a 10-second message to a member of your team, and that makes a decision that allows them to get back to doing their work and continue on a path, you're setting major things in motion and they're not waiting on you. What happens with a work-life balance that doesn't happen with a work-life integration is you end up holding up the line. And if you as a leader, as a decision maker, are not being decisive and effective with your decisions and moving things along, then you end up creating this multiplier effect where people can't get their work done and deadlines get missed, and stress gets added up. So don't think about how you can separate your work and your life. Think about how you can integrate them. And that doesn't mean that you're 24/7, thinking about work, and 24/7, like trying to think about family and having one foot in the other. No, it really doesn't. It allows you to have much richer connection in those moments while still getting things done that otherwise would have caused you stress and detracted from your ability to stay present in either situation. So stop looking for that work-life balance. Start looking for work-life integration. Make it an effective day, everybody.